Kongversation.
Better yet, I can go bobbing for bananas. Not to be confused with the game I used to play with my ex-boyfriend, Bananas the Spider Monkey.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle.
And I'm Nick. I'm finally out of the ex-boy dungeon.
I didn't even realize you had gotten there.
You put me there, you son of a...
I'm sorry. Look, you were upset about not getting to go to E3, so I thought, the next best thing would be, getting crammed in the ex-boy dungeon. And but when I say being crammed, I mean what they do to you in the ex-boy dungeon. And
I certainly saw my share of reveals. I'll say that.
It was kind of the equivalent to E3, because E3 was just it wasn't miserable, but it was just so full of people, and you were like in a sweaty, cramped environment for 3 days. So I thought, I thought I would make you sweaty and cramped.
I appreciate that. Good to be back.
So when I introduced myself this episode, I was doing the whole Diddy Kong falsetto voice because we are talking about Diddy Kong Pilot this week.
Now, you said we were doing a Diddy Kong Pilot episode, but I wasn't in the loop. Like, are we pitching a sitcom? Like, is this the pilot episode? I don't get
That's
it.
right. Yeah. It's a brilliant idea I had where Diddy Kong has to move in with Elvis, who was abducted by aliens. And they have wacky misadventures in suburban Dallas. It's a great idea. It's totally original. I have a million good ideas like this.
I like it. We're currently working on a similar project, though. Would you mind possibly changing Diddy to a woman and making a few other changes?
No, I stand by my writing. I refuse to alter it.
Oh, well, you'll have to take it elsewhere. I'm sorry about that.
God, I hate Hollywood. No, this is Diddy Kong Pilot, Nick. It wasn't really canceled, was it? It was the Diddy Kong Racing Game Boy Advance follow-up sequel. It would have been the Donkey Kong Land of Diddy Kong Racing lore.
Wow.
Eventually, it did see release in one form as Banjo-Pilot in 2005. Yes. But the road, or should I say the sky lane to Banjo-Pilot was full of a lot of weird twists and turns. And out of the entirety of canceled or heavily altered games in the Donkey Kong universe library, Diddy Kong Pilot is one of the most interesting, and it's kind of surprising we haven't done an episode on this yet.
I mean, it just straight up disappeared. It's kind of like the Malaysian Airlines flight of the DKU.
Now, we all know what happened to the Malaysian Airlines flight. Jacob had to bring them to the island to select who was going to be his replacement. And then there was a smoke monster, of course. But Diddy Kong Pilot was originally, announced way back at E3 2001. I don't know if it could have gotten announced after 9/11.
I was going to say, that was quite a year for planes having weird fates.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into the whole reason why we're discussing Diddy Kong Pilot. I think part of it was Jeff and I, convened with the DKU Tribunal last episode, and it really got me thinking about what Diddy Kong Pilot would have done to the canon had it been released in one of its forms.
Yeah, that was a great episode. You guys finally decided that Jet Force Gemini and Saberwolf GBA are DKU. It was great.
I really don't think you actually paid attention while listening to it.
Oh, maybe I was kind of skimming through it. But
yeah, no, we did finally settle Tracky Train. So
Wait, what the fuck is Tracky Train?
All right, let's get to some due diligence, my friend. I'm gonna. I don't know why I called you my friend. Clearly, we're bitter enemies.
Yeah. Can you not put on that facade for at least one episode?
I'm just gonna let our animosity just be out in the open. I sent you to a dungeon, and I said it was because I wanted to do you a favor, but the truth was I just wanted you tortured.
Yeah, you're pretty much my enemy.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It's the closest we have to Guantanamo, the exploit dungeon. Support DK Vine on Patreon. That's how we built a dungeon in the first place. DKVine.com/Patreon. Also, check out the DK Vine forum. I have a feeling that, from a certain point of view, there's never been a better time to join.
Make your own enemy today. DKVine.com/interactive/forum.
Not interact. I mean, you can just get it to DKVine.com/forum.
I'm old
that
school.
Works just fine. You're old school. And this is an old school episode. We're talking a game from 2001. So, yeah, that's very well. Subscribe to DK Vine on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE. It's 8463. And Nick, you are a musician, and you do have a new album out. Nick Prol and the Proletarians presents Loon Attic, now available as a CD or digital download. And
now
I figured...
about the payment. I did say I'd pay you to mention that. I can only give you about 50 cents because I'm kind of broke, but I do appreciate you mentioning it.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to be able to pay me with 50 Cent. You're going to get him on the show. And
no. He's in
Iraq
how much right now, fighting terrorists, blood on the sand and all that. He had his own video game where he fought terrorists.
I seem to recall that, but did that actually happen?
It did. I don't know if it was terrorists, but it was called Blood on the Sand, so I just assumed maybe that's racist. Maybe he was just in a sandbox killing kids.
Anyway, Nick, you're a musician. Would you mind singing the hotline jingle?
I would be honored to. So, to reach us by cell or landline, call 1-202-630 and a word.
That's Nick Prol and the Proletarians, Loon Attic.
If you want more quality like that, go check it out.
23 tracks, right?
That is, oh, you knew that, yes.
Yeah. So all of them almost up to that quality.
Almost.
Subscribe to the Kongversation on iTunes. Give us a rating while you're there if you're feeling friendly. And if you're feeling friendly, make sure to tell your friends about the show. Don't forget, we may not have gotten 50 Cent on the Kongversation, but I still want to get treasured 90s icon Fabio on the show. Yes. So tell Fabio, if you know where he is, to come on the Kongversation. And of course, as always, hashtag bring back the spiders.
Bring them back.
Additionally, check out the Sea of Thieves Insider program at seaofthieves.com/insider. Everybody who signs up for it is guaranteed to get in the game before Sea of Thieves is released. And Rare is adding 10,000 new people.
Yeah, I saw that, weekend. And I haven't gotten the email yet, but fingers crossed.
But, I mean, that's ridiculous. 10,000 new pirates on the seas. And, we keep going on about Sea of Thieves on the Kongversation, but it really is the most fun I've ever had playing the game. And
I wish I could say the same. Hopefully soon I can.
You'll get in there eventually. Like I said, everybody will get in eventually. And
eventually.
It's just... It makes you giddy. It makes you feel like a kid again playing this game. And it's just living inside Rare's world. It's fantastic. Wow. So check it out, seaofthieves.com/insider. And finally, got to give a plug for Robin Beanland's Bicycle Trek for Charity in September. Robin Beanland, beloved Rare composer of Sea of Thieves, in fact, will be bicycling across Britain for 9 fucking days.
We wish the most steady of hands to what the nurse is working on his leg. Did you see his leg?
Yeah.
Ouch, he hurt himself. So I hope he does well.
He did. He is training hard for this. Blood, sweat, and tears, but mostly blood. So
blood on the sand.
Yeah, 50 Cent should not have been his trainer for this.
No.
I don't think the guy knows the first thing about bicycling. Special Effect is the group he's raising money for. He's going through this to raise money for this charity. And they use video games and technology to improve and enrich the lives of the disabled.
Wow.
So if you have any money to spare, go to his justgiving.com page. Search for Robin Beanland there, and
Robin Beanland is like the Lance Armstrong of legitimate bicyclists.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if he's going to have any rubbery wristband that he's going to market after the fact. Yeah,
I'd wear Beanstrong.
I would too. I would wear multiple Bean Strong bracelets all over my body.
I'd use one to tie off when I'm ejecting. Oh, sorry, never mind.
You're out of the dungeon now, Nick. You don't need to engage in such
it's in the past.
shocking activities. It's in the past. We're past it. And we are past Diddy Kong Pilot, because this is a game that, unfortunately, never came to be. Well, maybe, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, too. There's a lot of conflicting emotions I have about Diddy Kong Pilot. And to really explain why, we have to go back to the start, at least when we were first introduced to it. So, E3 2001. Now, this is an E3 we've waxed nostalgia for time and again here on the Kongversation. Out of all the E3s in our history, it is near the top. A lot of people probably still consider it the E3.
That's when Sea of Thieves was announced, and I mean, it's been a long wait, but we're still waiting.
No, actually, this is the E3 where Donkey Kong Racing, Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers, and Banjo-Kazooie Granny's Revenge were all announced. It was
only one of which came out.
Well, yes and no.
Coconut Crackers became It's Mr. Pants.
Right. Diddy Kong Pilot, of course, became Banjo-Pilot. This was also E3 where Dinosaur Planet was officially announced as the reworked Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet.
That's a lot of rare at E3.
It was the most earth-shattering E3. We've never had an E3 since then that's just been wave after wave of insane announcements. We had E3 2004 where we had Jungle Beat and King of Swing announced, which, obviously kind of a yin and yang situation at the time there. Then there was E3, 2010. We had Donkey Kong Country Returns, but that was just more of a singular event. E3
but you could hear it coming.
We could hear it coming. We could hear all of us coming that E3. There was E3 2015, which was the Rare Renaissance. We had Rare Replay and Sea of Thieves. But as far as a sheer glut of insanity, E3 2001 was where it was at. Which makes, the fact that half of these games didn't come out in the promised forms kind of bittersweet, because we were giddy schoolgirls this E3.
Now, was that... when did E3 take place? Was that before September 11th?
Yeah, it was May. I think E3 was May back then. Pretty sure it was May. Okay. So it was like the end of the school year, and we would come home from school and see all the announcements, and it would just be, holy shit!
You just couldn't wait to get the game and use your box cutter to tear it open, but then you couldn't really say that a couple months later.
Yeah, quite unfortunate. I really feel bad for the box cutter industry.
Yeah, it really sucks.
Really, they were the true victims of 9/11.
Plus,
when you really think about it.
Kramer lost his. That sucks.
That's ironic. Not ironically, that's not irony. I'm not a Alanis Morissette, but that is my favorite episode of Seinfeld, which, obviously.
Kind of like Diddy Kong Pilot was never released.
Yeah, like Diddy Kong Pilot is my favorite Donkey Kong game. Diddy Kong Pilots, it was, to sum it up, I mean, essentially it was, like I said, a Donkey Kong Land to Diddy Kong Racing. It had much more of a narrow focus than Diddy Kong Racing, though. While Diddy Kong Racing, really embraced the racing adventure notion, this kind of played it more straight. And, of course, you only had planes. You didn't have cars or hovercraft. I think one of the jokes we had at the time was, I can't wait for Diddy Kong Hovercraft to come out. But, no, I mean, for what it was, you have to also keep in mind this was announced right alongside Donkey Kong Racing. So, for those of us who adored Diddy Kong Racing, this was a great day. I mean,
yeah.
And, Diddy Kong Racing turns 20 this year, so I kind of wanted to do this episode before we actually talk about Diddy Kong Racing proper. But suffice to say, DK Vine owes it all to Diddy Kong Racing. So the fact that, Diddy Kong Racing ended on to be continued, and we were waiting, at that point, almost 4 years for a sequel, and that, was unfathomable at the time. 4 years? But finally, our prayers were answered in a 1-2 punch. And we've already talked about Donkey Kong Racing here on the Kongversation. That was an earlier abortion clinic episode. Actually, that was our first abortion clinic episode. Way back when, season 1. So, Diddy Kong Pilot, finally we got around to it. But here's the thing about Diddy Kong Pilot. When it was originally shown off, and actually in all versions of Diddy Kong Pilot, it was just Mode 7, flat terrain. So the fact that they were racing in planes didn't make a whole lot of sense. Because the thrill of, flying planes in Diddy Kong Racing came about because, you could twist through canyons and tunnels.
Yeah. And your voice sounded like Dane Cook. It was great.
What?
Planes reference. It's a reference.
Oh my God, Nick. Okay, keep in mind, I'm not really big on the whole Cars expanded universe.
Keep in mind, I haven't seen any of them. I just know Dane Cook was in
the
Planes.
fact that you knew that Dane Cook was in the direct-to-DVD pseudo follow-up to the Cars series.
It's like being knowledgeable on a heinous murder. Like, I still know the glove didn't fit, but, I don't like murder.
Sure you don't. I know you were cheering OJ's parole. You were
all
sitting
right,
in front of TV.
Yeah. I want the juice to be loose.
Again, you're not in the exploit dungeon anymore. You don't have to let any juice loose. So anyway, Diddy Kong Pilot, right from the outset, there really isn't much point to it being in planes. It's an aesthetic gimmick more than anything. I mean, you can go up and down.
Had Mario Kart Super, whatever it's called, for the GBA come out recently?
It would come out later that summer.
Maybe it wanted to just differentiate itself.
I don't really know the purpose behind why they went with just a straight up planes gimmick. I mean, especially, they could have just done karts and hovercrafts and planes, because Donkey Kong Racing was moving on to animal steeds. So it's not like they really, had to set it apart. It's a weird choice, and it's a weird choice they were committed to because they stuck with it up through Banjo-Pilot. And of course, Banjo-Pilot at one point had a voxel version that actually introduced canyons and terrain that would have made planes appropriate. Unfortunately, it was rendered unplayable in the actual GBA hardware, so they had to ditch that version for something closer to Diddy Kong Pilot. But
they might have just been Nirvana fans. I'm on a plane.
Okay, all right. Yeah. My wife would have gotten that right away because she's the grunge fan. My knowledge on grunge is a little bit shakier. So I knew there was some sort of song lyric you were referencing, Nick, but
It was a
more of a
total
Courtney Love fan.
stretch, so you shouldn't feel ashamed.
I'm more into Hole, I have to be honest, than Nirvana. So
Yeah, I thought I was out of the X-Boy dungeon. Can we please move on?
all right. I knew I was gonna set you up for that, fucker. One of the things attached to Diddy Kong Pilot that maybe led them down this path of let's put them in planes was the tilt technology. Now, the tilt technology in a Game Boy cartridge was first utilized, I believe, in Kirby Tilt and Tumble for the Game Boy Color. And this was basically a sensor inside the cartridge that allowed you to tilt your Game Boy, and the game would read it, and you could, roll your character around that way. It was later used in Yoshi's Universal Gravitation and WarioWare Twisted.
Hell yeah, WarioWare Twisted. It's great.
So I think, this was part of the idea, and as we later saw with Diddy Kong Racing DS, utilizing control gimmicks in a racing game isn't the best idea.
Nah.
So I imagine it would have played like shit on, especially the original Game Boy Advance, because you remember before the Game Boy Advance SP, there was no backlight on the Game Boy Advance. So to have to tilt it back and forth, it would have just completely fucked up your field of vision and with the screen and your character. And I can't imagine it would have been an enjoyable experience. And you would have been able to turn off the tilt and just control it normally. But
I don't know if it even would have run on the SP, because the SP stands for Sans Planes. So no plane-related games could play on that. But it would have been interesting.
Well, you're forgetting Banjo-Pilot, but to be fair, most people forget about Banjo-Pilot.
Yeah, good point.
Anyway, so yeah, they were, of course, when Banjo-Pilot came out, they, ditched the tilt technology, and I'm sure at that point they just didn't care, but also THQ didn't want to pony up to include that in their cartridge. So the cast, when it was first announced at E3 2001, was fucking amazing. This is one of the best cast, I think, in any roster in any Donkey Kong Universe game. So I'm going to read this out, and I want you to react appropriately. Now, keep in mind, it's called Diddy Kong Pilot, so this was a game starring Diddy Kong, first and foremost. So obviously Diddy was playable.
Yay!
But so was Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong was in the game, but he was taking not taking top billing. And I love this because Diddy Kong was established as his own video game hero at the end
he's
of Donkey Kong
Rare's
Country 2.
poster boy.
Yeah, he got his own game with Diddy Kong Racing. So I love that Donkey and Diddy, and I suppose Dixie too. But
it kind of makes sense too, because Donkey Kong Racing would have been a console version, and Diddy Kong was the handheld. He's littler. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I just love that, like, the nature of their partnership at this point in time was, oh yeah, Diddy, you want to be the lead? I'll be second fiddle. Whatever.
Why not?
I don't care. Yeah. And on the title screen, Diddy is actually riding Donkey's back, similar to what they would do in Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze. So I just love that Donkey Kong was actually in this, but Diddy Kong was still the star.
Yeah, it's like
as
making
a Diddy
Short Round The Last Crusade or something.
No, as a Diddy fan, this is just so gratifying and affirming that, Diddy can be the star even if Donkey Kong is there. Fuck it. Dixie was also there, and this was a big deal at the time.
Absolutely.
People don't remember. This was during a heinous drought for the character of Dixie Kong. After Donkey Kong Land 3 in 1997, Dixie was in no games. She couldn't even fill a Dixie cup.
It was such a drought.
She was shamefully excluded from Donkey Kong 64 in favor of her little sister.
Yeah, fuck that noise.
Yeah. Well, we had DK Vine, because DK Vine launched in 1999 for Donkey Kong 64, so we were really, like, by this point in time, 2001, we were really like wishing Dixie would come back, and here she was. And the amusing part was she was not a playable character in Donkey Kong Racing. Tiny was playable in Donkey Kong Racing. So the fact that both games were announced on the same day and you had this kind of split roster, it upset some people, I'm sure, but I know Chad and I, heading up DK Vine, and probably Ozzy, Ben, and Andre, we were fine with this. This was great. Like, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll get Dixie and Diddy Kong Pilot, Tiny and Donkey Kong Racing. It's fine. It's democratic, whatever. It should be pointing out, too, that Dixie did have the rare pin on her beret. This would have been the, I guess, actual in-game debut of the rare pin on her model.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. Cranky would have been playable. And so we had the Tropical Freeze cast right here.
But the one Kong who has playing experience is not there. Funky. Not
yet, at least. He would come in a later build.
Yeah.
So, but 13 years before Tropical Freeze, we had Diddy, Donkey, Dixie, and Cranky all together. We also had Crunch from Diddy Kong Racing. Crunch was back. And this really made us happy because Crunch is a fan favorite character. And the fact, he's still owned by Nintendo. He's one of 2 Diddy Kong Racing characters. Well, 3 counting Tricky, although that gets ambiguous, when you consider, wait, is it adult Tricky that Nintendo owns, or is it just child to teenage Tricky? It's one of those things where I'm sure even lawyers wouldn't know what the hell is going on with the character, but
like Tiny
we're pretty
Kong.
sure. How so?
Because she's a lawyer, right?
She's an accountant, according to the German Donkey Kong 64 website.
Well, she's official in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, I think Rare probably feels that they wouldn't touch Tricky because Star Fox Adventures kind of made him just off limits. We'll just make sure we'll just let Nintendo have him. And Nintendo used Tricky after Rare left, so they feel like they have some rights to at least the Star Fox Adventures.
Plus, he had his own snowboarding game at the time, SSX Tricky. So that was sort of in the spotlight.
Oh, the DKU Tribunal didn't get to that one last week.
You should have
put it on the docket for next time.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, why am I talking about Tricky so much? I got stuck on Tricky. Nintendo or Namco aged him up in Star Fox Assault, so they feel confident they can use Tricky. Anyway, so yeah, Nintendo still owns Crunch, and we really want Crunch back, but it's doubtful we'll ever see Crunch again.
I believe.
When K. Rool can't even get into a fucking Donkey Kong game, what hope does Crunch have?
If Crunch came back first, that would be insane.
I would be okay with that.
Crunch,
I love Crunch.
was given a raise to like the new king, like K. Rool's all senile now or something, so Crunch is like the leader of the Kremlings in the next DKC game.
He'll be what Mike Pence is a year from now.
Except he's sometimes seen without his wife.
His mommy. Yeah. Well, speaking of K. Rool is also playable. And
nice.
the really cool thing about K. Rool in this early build was that he had a new persona.
Baron Von
And it was
Ghoul.
Well, yeah, basically. He was dressed as an old school pilot, kind of the Howard Hughes the pilot goggles on his head.
His fingernails are pretty long, and I've seen him peeing into a jar before.
Yeah. You know what? I would be fine if when they brought K. Rool back, that they explain his absence through him descending into this germophobic self-solitude.
Way of the future. Way of the future. Way of the future. Way of
now
the
that
future.
Leonardo DiCaprio has won his Oscar, maybe he'll just say fuck it and decide to voice K. Rool.
Yeah, now he's off in Shutter Island, rocking back and forth, going, way of the future. Way of the future. But yeah, so far this cast is, classic characters everyone would expect. It's pretty legitimate, respectable, and I'd say that's an overall good cast right there. I mean,
absolutely.
Right there, that's a good final cast.
It's a good mixture of Donkey Kong Country characters and Diddy Kong Racing characters.
Yeah, so let's move on past the cast, and we have some screenshots.
No. You're forgetting.
Huh?
Everybody's favorite Donkey Kong character.
Am I?
Yeah.
Squitter?
Well, you're pretty urbane, Nick, so I could see why you would just be overlooking the heart of Red America. Redneck Kong. Yeah, so Redneck. We're going to be getting in-depth into Redneck Kong here in just a little bit. So I don't want to belabor Redneck Kong at this point in the episode, but
squeal like Professor Chops, boy.
Redneck Kong was a new addition to the Donkey Kong family.
You said that.
Short-lived, however he may have been in the development cycle of this game. Redneck Kong was there at E3 2001, and goddamn if we don't love Redneck Kong.
He sticks out like a sore thumb in this picture. It's like, what the fuck? What were they thinking?
Who cares? He's great.
I love it. But I mean, is there a part of DK Island that is like rural enough for like middle America or something?
You know, at this point, you know, we have Banjo, who is
True.
like Southern despite wearing tight European shorts. Like, there's no reason for Banjo to exist in a rare archipelago, yet he does.
Good point.
And yes, granted, Spiral Mountain is kind of more like rural. You know, I said it. That's a hard word to say, rural. But when you really think about it, Banjo makes no sense considering like a shaman lives not far from him. So I think Redneck Kong, we were just conditioned to expect it. And of course, there's the grand tradition of, he goes by many names, but Commuter Kong, City Kong, Hat Kong.
Pepito Kong, as
from off of
discussed in the
Donkey
last
Kong
episode.
Land. Yeah. Pepito Kong. Yeah. So, you know, there was already this canned Kong from the Donkey Kong Land era. So the fact that we now have the country version of that, not Donkey Kong Country, I mean literal country. You know, City Kong's a little bit rock and roll, Redneck Kong's a little bit country. And that's fine. We were just conditioned for this, and we were just conditioned for the fact that there could be a ridiculous stereotype Kong for everything. Like, it had Rare stayed with Nintendo and they continued developing Donkey Kong games, and had Redneck Kong actually come to pass, I'm sure we would have eventually gotten into some unfortunate racial stereotype Kongs.
Yeah, what's next?
A few years down the line.
A bird named Perry the Cable Guy?
That's just awful, Nick.
Yeah, that's
What
awful.
did they do to you in the X-Boy dungeon?
They took my pun glands out of my brain and fucked them and then put them back in.
Oh.
But yeah,
Well,
I do look forward to You're a Redneck Kong if. That should be pretty funny.
Yeah, right. We should just do a whole episode where we just do Jeff Foxworthy-esque humor about Redneck Kong. It would be awful.
Awfully good.
But, and enough about Redneck Kong for now. We have a whole section in our show notes dedicated to Redneck Kong, which is funny because he was barely in this game. He was like cut like as soon as E3 ended. Where I was like, get the fucker out of here.
They got a bunch of calls from Kansas going, I'm offended.
What's the matter with Kansas? All right. We know this much about this build of the game, and I got this information from various sources. The thing you have to realize about Diddy Kong Pilot is there's a lot of contradictory information out there. What we know is from what Rare showed off, like at shows like E3, and from the leaked footage and the eventual ROM of the final build of the game. So there's a lot of conflicting information about these earlier builds. So I apologize if any of this information is inaccurate. I am just going based on the existing research and from what I've seen with my own two eyes.
With Redneck Kong, there was quite a bit of fake news, so you can excuse us for that.
He lives in a bubble. He only believes what Fox News tells him. Fox News being the news network run by foxes in the Rare Archipelago.
Fox Adventures News.
It was seen in Star Fox Assault on the screen.
Oh, really?
There actually was they were reporting on the asteroid attack on Corneria, and you saw a news reporter who was a lady fox.
Did the character of Bill have his own factor?
No, he was fired from Star Fox Assault for sexual harassment. That's why he wasn't in the game.
He just loved beavers too much.
He was very naughty. So the alleged cups, purported cups, or whatever you want to call them, in this first build of Diddy Kong Pilot,
like the Grand Prix cups.
Yeah. Like the equivalent of mushroom, flower, star, or in Banjo-Pilot there was like honeycomb, beehive, stuff like that.
Ice key.
So, no, there wasn't.
That would have been funny though.
Yeah. Sleepy Shores, Congo Kingdom, Western Waste, Island of Eggs, and Polar Plateau.
Sleepy Shores.
Less like... Yeah, these were more like world names, less than cup names. By the time it got to Banjo-Pilot, they reduced them to just cups. But yeah, so I think it was going more like the Diddy Kong Racing route, where saying these tracks all take place within the same area. But what we do know is from early screenshots and some early video footage from like E3. And so you would have like these lava fields, which... pretty striking, different from what we got in the final build of the game, which is essentially Banjo-Pilot. But we got like this just like lava wasteland with volcanoes in the background.
Was Gobi there?
And no, he was not. These kind of look like Crocodile Cauldron, but slightly different. And in some of the screenshots and video footage, you'll see minecart tracks in this area. So interesting. We had a beach with an island. It was kind of like a little island in the ocean, and in the distance you would have these other islands with the green vegetation. Kind
I'm
of looks like the South
assuming
Pacific.
that's Sleepy Shores.
I guess. I don't know.
What's so sleepy about it?
Just lazy. You're on a secluded island, nothing going on, just take a nap in the sun.
Bill Cosby goes for vacation, Sleepy Shores.
Yeah. Quaaludes would have been one of the items in Diddy Kong Pilot.
Quaalude Loop.
There was a snow area. It was kind of just like a winter wonderland type area with ice and then melted water in the distance, like a lake.
Now, Island of Eggs, though, that interests me.
Yeah. Well, in some of the footage, we can see like Cranky carrying an egg. It looks like similar to the Diddy Kong Racing battle stage where you had to like carry the eggs and put them in the nest. And I don't know if that's similar. There's also a farmland in this build of the game, and unlike anything we'd really seen in Donkey Kong up to this point, there were apple trees and plowed fields in the distance. I don't know if this would have been like Redneck Kong's home. That was one of the theories at the time, but it just really cool to see like Donkey Kong flying through farmland.
Yeah,
it looks more appropriate for Banjo, which is funny because this never made it into the Banjo-Pilot build.
Wow.
Yeah. We know that there were at least 4 types of weapons in this version. I almost said virgin because we're talking about Diddy Kong Pilot, so I've just renounced all sex I've ever had in my life.
It's on the brain for some reason. I don't know why.
So there would have been... It's either a coconut gun or a peanut pop gun. It's a bit unclear with the graphics. But it's clearly a Donkey Kong 64 style like wooden weapon. And, you would have like fired them at the other racers. Returning from Diddy Kong Racing, there was magnets. And some of the footage I've seen, it looks exactly like it did from Diddy Kong Racing. In other footage, it's actually connected to a barrel. So, because, I don't know, they've said, we need to make this more Donkey Kong-y. Let's just shove this magnet on a barrel. Have a magnet barrel. It's brilliant design.
ICP couldn't really wrap their head around it, though.
They couldn't. No, they absolutely could not. I mean, maybe if the barrels were full of Feiho, that would have been one thing.
That'd be cool. You mean Fago?
Fago. Is that what it's called? No, Feiho is the cash from Conquer.
I was gonna say. Got Conquer on the brain.
Sorry, I don't drink. I don't drink ICP endorsed soda. You know, I'm a Code Red man.
That's true. Foremost. Yeah.
And Baja Blast, but that's shamefully not on store shelves.
No, it had rocket boost.
Rocket boost, like Diddy Kong Racing's rocket boost. So, from what I can tell, this would have carried forward the Diddy Kong Racing / RC Pro-Am style of upgrading your weaponry, which, you know, really set Diddy Kong Racing apart from Mario Kart at the time. And you collected all these items from floating question mark balloons. So, like Diddy Kong Racing, you know, you would have gotten stuff from balloons, but they added question marks. I guess just this more. I don't know. They did alter a lot of the graphics from Diddy Kong Racing, and I imagine. Well, we saw as development continued, they further strayed from Diddy Kong Racing's items and various graphical stylings. Now, there were the following modes in this build and in the other build we're about to talk about, and that was racing, which I imagine was just the crux of the game.
Yeah.
In the other build of the game that's quite similar to this one, it was called Tournament. So there's an options menu, exciting. There was Clock Race, which was this game's version of the time trial mode.
I wonder if TT would have been in it.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, TT seems to be the announcer in the final build of the games, but he never appears on screen. So, but it's the same voice as TT, but same voice as the Diddy Kong Racing announcer. So, it's presumably TT. There were the battles and dog fights. I'm not sure what.
That was Michael Vick's favorite mode.
And there were stories, and we're going to get into stories here in a little bit because that's probably one of the most weird aspects
I like that.
Early Diddy Kong Pilot. Let's talk about Redneck Kong, Nick. Let's talk about the saga of Redneck Kong.
I don't know if we can fit it all in one episode.
I know. Well, unfortunately, he's not a canon character by definition because he never made it into a release game. So we can't ever do a character witness episode on Redneck Kong. Maybe way down the line when we're out of other characters, we'll do Redneck Kong. But so we'll just have to keep it brief as we can with Redneck Kong, which I realize it's hard to do because he's such a bounty of stories and tales, and I mean, we could go on and on about Redneck Kong, but for the longest time, people forget we did not know this idiot's name. We called him various things. That the two we most often used were Bumpkin Kong or Hillbilly Kong. I think Bumpkin Kong was something we really settled on in the mid-aughts, but Hillbilly Kong was another favorite because it ended with the Y, which is more or less traditional for Kongs. Not every Kong has to have his or her name end in Y, but it's the standard.
Unfortunately, Mongoloid didn't catch on.
Oh God, you can't say that, can you?
If I'm from Mongolia.
Yeah, I guess. If they would have gotten to the really stereotypical Kongs, eventually they would have just had Sombrero Kong and. I guess, we eventually did get Karate Kong, so that's pretty...
he was known for a while as fetal alcohol syndrome Kong.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
now-
not too edgy. Sorry.
This isn't 2001. I know we're talking about Diddy Kong Pilot, but this isn't 2001 anymore, Nick.
But
Can't
Dane,
say that
Dane
shit.
Cook's one of my heroes. He's a
Yeah,
plane.
I know. Before the buyout, before Microsoft purchased Rare, our own Chad wrote into Scribes on Rareware and asked Lee Loveday, "Hey, what is this Hillbilly Kong's name?" And Lee Loveday responded and said, "Don't worry about it. He's been killed off now anyway."
Wow.
So that was later in 2001. So or maybe that was early 2002, but we already knew at that point that the artist who would one day be known as Redneck Kong was already removed from the game.
Now that's offensive.
So yeah, I know. Why does Rare hate Middle America so much? Wait, okay. It's funny that we keep making these Middle America like redneck jokes when he's designed to be an Appalachian hillbilly.
Yeah.
So, what's laughably shit about the Redneck Kong name, besides how blunt and stupid it is that it really is just Rare missing the finer nuances of American hick culture, because he's clearly a hillbilly, a mountain dweller, and not what we would know as a redneck.
It's like if an American company made like Limey Kong or something. It's like so like xenophobic, I guess.
Yeah, it's not really xenophobic. It's just more like Rare, like looking at the American South and just think, oh, they're all rednecks. But the thing about, like, I guess what you would call hick or Southern culture is hillbillies are their own like culture. They're their own thing. They're not really rednecks. Rednecks are like driving pickup trucks, supporting Dale Earnhardt. You know, it's what's most prevalent. Hillbillies are like people who live up in the mountains, are kind of secluded, and like they make moonshine. You know, that's clearly what Redneck Kong is modeled after. And you know, quite honestly, I like me some hillbillies. Hillbillies are good folk.
Yeah, not like that shit in that game Redneck Rampage. You ever play that?
I remember that, but I never
some like
played
racing game where you're a bunch of redneck. I don't know. I think it was capitalizing on the King of the Hill craze.
That King of the Hill craze that swept us all. Well, you know, quite honestly, if Dale Earnhardt wasn't an unlockable character in that game, I don't want any part of it.
Exactly.
God needed a driver, so he took number 3.
Well, he met the same fate as this game, unfortunately.
I grew up in the South, so you know I mean, I live in the South right now. Well, I live in Virginia, which is, you know, it straddles the line, but it's still south of the Mason-Dixon line. So it's around me, you know, constantly. So I feel like I can speak of this, speak of true redneck culture.
Sure,
but nevertheless,
you have tons of redneck friends, so it's okay.
Your neck was red after they got out of the exploit dungeon.
That leash is...
Fact.
Can you just make the leash longer? That's all I ask.
No, because I like to strangle you like David Carradine. That's the only way you're going to get off at maximum velocity.
And you were blasting in excess in there. It's just so annoying.
An anonymous Rare staffer told DK Vine in 2010 the following. The hillbilly was known as Redneck Kong and was a very short-lived idea from the designer of the project. Sometime during that time, the screenshot was obviously captured.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, we found out in 2010 from a former Rare staffer whose identity we keep anonymous for their own sake that he was Redneck Kong. So yeah, we've only known that for 7 years, which is it's weird because Redneck Kong has become such a ubiquitous part of Donkey Kong fandom, at least the really hardcore
He's
Donkey Kong fandom.
probably the most popular
celebrate...
DKU character.
He is one of those things that's kind of like a calling card between the really hardcore fans. Like, yeah, Redneck Kong. Like, there's more fan art of Redneck Kong than there are of a lot of characters that actually made it in the game. Like, I would wager there's more fan art of Redneck Kong than there is Professor Chops, for example.
Yeah.
So, Redneck Kong, I mean, he was only seen during this E3 footage, E3 2001 footage, but he stayed with us. He is, when you think of Diddy Kong Pilot, he is one of the first things you think of. And it's quite a shame they didn't believe in this idea, because almost immediately afterwards, he was removed. But before we get into who he was removed in favor of, I want to ask you this, Nick. Is Redneck Kong, and this is something that just dawned on me today, looking at his character design, putting him in episode artwork, is he supposed to be a chimpanzee? Because for the longest time I thought Redneck Kong is a gorilla. He looks like a gorilla, but looking at him closer, he's got ears unlike any other Kong designed by Rare. He's got like long ears that stick out. He looks facially more like a chimpanzee. Of course, I can't tell if that was just them like accentuating like inbred features. You know, oh, look at this bucktooth moron with the big ears, or it's Redneck Kong. But I'm wondering, is he supposed to be a chimp? You're an artist. You're a musician. You're an artist. You're a Renaissance man. And so clearly, being a Renaissance man, you can speak to this. Is Redneck Kong supposed to be a chimp? And I want to bring this to all the people in the live stream that we do for patrons at the $5 and up tier. Do you think Redneck Kong is a chimp?
I think he's a Bubba Boon.
You fucker, Nick. It's always a flippant answer with you. You can never be serious. Well, and if you can't be serious about Redneck Kong, what can you be serious about?
I don't. No, but he could be a rhesus monkey.
Yeah.
Looks like he eats his share of Reese's peanut butter cups.
Well, he doesn't really resemble a monkey because he's got the brow, which with Rare's designs, the brow was pretty exclusive to gorillas.
True.
But
I've never thought of this, honestly. I think maybe. Yeah, he doesn't look like a gorilla. I
mean, like I said, we've assumed he's a gorilla because of the brow.
I think he's a
Kong.
But
looking at him,
on a limb here and say he's a Kong.
He's some sort of Kong, yeah. I don't know. I think Redneck Kong could have been the introduction of chimpanzees in the Kong family, and we've never had a chimp in a Donkey Kong game. It's it's something that's kind of infuriating. Like we've never had a big cat animal buddy. We want that. We want chimpanzees to be introduced too. We've had orangutans, gorillas, monkeys, different varieties of monkeys even. No, a chimpanzee is an ape, Nick.
Oh, I need to brush up on
chimp.
What was that? What was that send away magazine you could get from the TV ads?
I like the
Jungle Books.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I know Chad subscribed to that. I got sent like
Zoo
these
books,
animal
that's it.
Zoo books.
Thank you,
Zoo books.
Q-Burn.
Thank you, Q-Burn. Yeah. I think Chad subscribed to Zoo books. I think Chad subscribed to Zoo books. I had like these animal like fact cards I got for a brief time.
I had those too.
But
I also had like this big DK. Oh, DK. Wait a second. No, but those big coffee table books by DK on the Animal Kingdom, it was like huge and had every animal ever. Yet I didn't know a chimpanzee was an ape.
The Q-Burn brought up the tiger poster. I forgot about the tiger poster. Oh my god.
Right after the ad for your VHS of construction vehicles working on construction sites. Remember those?
Yeah!
Be right before the Zoo books on. It'd be like tractors, trailers, caterpillars. Young kids love construction vehicles in the 90s.
This takes me back to the Disney afternoon, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. We've never had chimps in the DKU, and Redneck Kong might have been it.
Might have been a chimp.
Who's to say? Might have been a chimp.
Chimp a butterfly.
Considering how aggressive chimpanzees are in nature and bonobos, it would have been weirdly appropriate if Rare made chimps the rednecks of Donkey Kong Island. And the fact that we've never seen them, that the Kongs don't really associate with any chimpanzees, kind of makes that even more delicious. Like the Kongs are like the blue states, and the chimps are the red states of Donkey Kong Island, and they just live in their own little like communities and worlds with their own like set of facts and beliefs and morals. And wow, I don't know.
My favorite '90s family comedy was definitely Redneck Kong Checks In.
Dunstan Checks In was just brought up by Alistair on Twitter, and I have great affection for the movie Dunstan Checks In, and the only reason I have affection for it is because
it's a monkey.
The movie ended. No, he's an orangutan.
I'm sorry.
My God, Nick, you're a DK Vine staffer, and you don't know what a chimpanzee is, and you're calling orangutans
They're all
monkeys?
Kongs to me, man. You
are xenophobic. My God.
They're stealing our jobs and our games, I'm telling you.
The movie Dunstan Checks In ends with Dunstan and Jason Alexander and his son all moving to a tropical island, like so Dunstan can be in his natural habitat. So it didn't end with him like being sent away from the family. Like you thought they were going to be like have a teary like you gotta go be with your own kind, Dunstan. Or you thought maybe it would end with him in the hotel, which that's no place for an orangutan. But no, it ended with the humans being transplanted to the tropical locale and everybody living happily ever after.
Kind of like Jungle to
Jungle. I love that. Oh, yeah. That movie bombed because Hollywood doesn't support conservatives like Tim Allen. That's the only reason.
Hey, he made monkey sounds on stage once, and he was funny.
I watched Home Improvement. I watched Home Improvement even when it got fucking old. And I'll say this for Tim Allen. Galaxy Quest is fucking awesome.
Hell yes. And he can snort a lot of coke.
He can. And quite honestly, I'm all right with that. Tim Allen, my political views are pretty well established, but I would love to hang out with Tim Allen. I would love to party with Tim Allen.
Mine are still nebulous, purposefully, but I would love to hang out with him too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to bridge the gap here. We're talking some divisive things about redneck Kongs and what have you. I'm trying to say, if there's anything that can bring liberals, conservatives, and moderates together, it's a whole shit ton of cocaine and an excellent Star Trek parody.
Exactly. At least we don't have social justice Kong. What would he look like? I wonder.
Had Rare stayed with the franchise, I'm sure we would have gotten all sorts of weird, awful one-note Kongs like social.
Maybe JonTron would have done his voice Kong. And then gotten fired. I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have no stake in that at all. I don't even know why I brought it up.
Yeah. You're just courting controversy.
Yeah, just being a provocateur.
Nevertheless, Redneck Kong was replaced in short order by an established Kong, and I'm not happy about this, Nick.
Why?
I know we didn't get any version of this game in the end, but this still upsets me that they didn't stick with the audacity of Redneck Kong and they went with this choice instead. You want to tell the people who they replaced Redneck Kong with?
I guess so. They went from one stereotype to another and they put in, brace yourselves, Asian railroad worker Kong.
Oh, yeah. Which, to be fair, he was one of the more overlooked Kongs.
It was just so
and I'm glad
offensive.
I know, but the fact that he was finally introduced in Tracky Train,
that it did fit. Yeah. Okay. No, it was Candy fucking Kong.
Right. Who, ironically, Redneck Kong probably would have had a silhouette of on his mud flaps.
True. That would have been amazing if they were both in the same game, and he's all like, "Hi, baby." She's like, "Psh, get lost." And he's all like, and then she's all like, and then he's like, and then, sorry. Candy Kong is like that girl in the latest episode of Twin Peaks. Have you seen that?
I've not caught up. I've not watched any of the new Twin Peaks yet, so no spoilers.
So
please, no spoilers.
Okay, but Dale Cooper does shoot himself in the head and dies. And then
I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but I'm upset if you just spoiled me.
Come As You Are starts playing, and then Richard Dean Stanton comes out with the Eraserhead baby in his asshole. Okay, let's move on.
No, I thought you were just going to say Candy Kong was a backwards talking little person.
She does have a radiator.
The weird thing about Candy in this game
is that she was in this game.
Well, she's designed like she was in her DK64 remake, and she's wearing like jean booty shorts, and she's not wearing the bathing suit from Donkey Kong Country.
Thank God.
But in the footage we've seen of the brief time Candy was going to be in this game, whenever you selected her, Redneck Kong would still pop up in her place.
Oh, really?
So clearly, like, they never got too far integrating Candy. This was just like...
I'm glad she wasn't wearing the bikini thing, because she had some serious goby toe going on there.
It's also worth noting in the select character screen changed from the Redneck Kong build to the Candy build. Originally, the characters were standing on the beach. And then in this select character screen, they're standing in an airplane hangar.
Huh.
And they also changed, or it looks like they tweaked Cranky's model just a bit, in that he was they changed his face ever so slightly.
I like the
he
first
looks kind of more like. He looks, yeah, I do too. He looks kind of more like the retro Cranky Kong here, weirdly enough. But I don't know. Nevertheless, Candy was never going to really make it into Diddy Kong Pilot. Now, it should be worth noting here too that one of the reasons Diddy Kong Pilot may have gone through so many iterations in development is, well, Nick, I'll allow you to tell the people why Diddy Kong Pilot was constantly regenerating into something else.
Is that what the anonymous rare staffer told us? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Well, an anonymous rare staffer, the same one who told us about Redneck Kong's true name.
Well, the same guy told us basically that the tilt pack idea was...
Or girl.
Or girl. Or they. Or Z. Or zoo. Or dog. The tilt pack idea was dropped, basically, and they showed the game to Nintendo. They didn't want it. Reasons given included, there is no point in flying up and down on flat levels. And some employees thought Nintendo was just being prejudiced against the company, as it was around the time of the Microsoft buyout. That's interesting. That'd be kind of petty if that's the case.
Well, I don't know if there's any validity there, although I could see both sides of the argument. One, this was right around the time where Rare Nintendo relations were a little bit more strained than they had been. This was around the time Iwata took over Nintendo, and Howard Lincoln had left Nintendo of America. The entire corporate culture of Nintendo had changed, and Rare no longer really had any allies in Nintendo.
Isn't Iwata a big Donkey Kong fan? Or was a big Donkey Kong fan?
I'll say this about Iwata. I don't think he saw the value of having Rare. Overnight, Nintendo kind of became more insular and more concerned about the happenings in Japan than they really were with like their Western studios or Nintendo. Like Nintendo of America, really, this is when Nintendo of America became more of a yes man operation for what Nintendo of Japan had to say than their own kind of independent affiliated entity that they had served up until this point. And I think Rare, I mean, this was around the time, Conker's Bad Fur Day had come out. Nintendo probably wasn't happy with Donkey Kong 64. I'll say that.
Didn't it sell great, though?
It sold great. I think Nintendo fucking hated it.
Why? What makes you think that?
Nintendo would have fucking hated it. And the fact that they had to include the expansion pack with it just so the game wouldn't crash. Well, that would be one of the reasons. I think there were many reasons why Nintendo and Rare relations were strained at this point. And a lot of reasons why Nintendo didn't opt to buy Rare, which I still view as very short-sighted on their part.
Grant Kirkhope, why did you have to pull that guy's pants down in that bathroom?
Fake news.
Oh.
I would check Snopes, but Snopes is going through some problems.
I thought we posted that
right now.
Didn't we?
It's no wonder Grant Kirkhope has us blocked on Twitter. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, and let's be perfectly honest. I have played Banjo-Pilot. I have 100% completed Banjo-Pilot.
Really?
Yeah.
It's one of the few GBA Rare games I don't have. Is it worth a play? Or?
There's a lot to like about it, but as far as a pure gameplay perspective, it's just okay. Let's be honest. Nintendo is correct. There is no point in flying up and down on flat levels. I view the whole Diddy Kong Pilot / Banjo-Pilot project as the portable team's ambitions getting carried away and them never able to live up to them. And I give them a lot of props for like trying to do like the voxel version of Banjo-Pilot. Ultimately, the hardware just wasn't powerful enough for the vision they had. So I see Nintendo's point. And this is coming from a huge Rare fanboy.
Of course,
so
yeah.
Like I say this with a heavy heart. So anyway, yeah. So I think Rare was kind of pressured to constantly recreate Diddy Kong Pilot to get it to a point where Nintendo would view it as being acceptable. And the only way they eventually got this game out was having it be a Banjo game distributed by THQ. So eventually they just circumvented Nintendo entirely. But Nick, let's talk about what came next. And this is something we didn't know about until the dawn of the current decade we're in now. Thanks to the many leaks and resurfaced footage in the wake of the many departing Rare employees, post Nuts and Bolts, and pre-Craig Duncan.
Yeah, if you
thought
Redneck Kong was weird, this is when it gets weird.
Yeah, this was from a very tumultuous time in Rare's history where people were leaving and people were very discouraged about the state of Rare. Rare had just started developing the Kinect sports games, and there's just this kind of notion that Rare as we know it is done. And so there were leaks left and right, a lot of chaos. ROMs were leaking of all these canceled projects from the early to late aughts. And we found out some crazy shit. So, the Super Mario build. Now, there seems to be some confusion. I mean, a lot of confusion. This is like we're all along the watchtower here. Because this build, we don't know where or when it originated. If it actually predated the E3 2001 build, or if it came afterwards.
Oh, we don't know that?
I have a feeling it came afterwards. Yeah. Because
this was a self-correct, or an attempt at one.
Well, this was, I think, maybe attempting to
appease.
My theory, because this is weird as shit. My theory is this is them attempting to seduce Nintendo in some form or fashion by filling it with Mario characters. But
Spoiler.
Here's the thing. This information was out there in probably 2001. It made no waves at the time because it was apparently shown off at Space World, which was Nintendo's big
Isn't that like
show in Japan.
The final ukulele level?
Yeah, and also where Galactic Pinball takes place. Welcome to Space World. Let's go.
Wow.
No, Space World was Nintendo's big kind of like their own E3, essentially, for Nintendo products in Japan. They did it up through 2001. 2001 was the last Space World. And as best we can tell, the Super Mario build of Diddy Kong Pilot probably took place at Space World 2001, which was held August 24th to August 26th. So a couple months after E3 2001. So that's why I think this came after the Redneck Kong / Candy Kong build of the game. Now because
was this around the same time as Saberwolf?
Yes, Saberwolf GBA was also shown off at E3 2001.
Because you can tell it has like a similar art style, maybe even the same art director.
Oh, yeah. Now, because Space World is a Japanese consumer show, and this was Diddy Kong Pilot in the waning era of Rare working with Nintendo, for whatever reason, this news never made its way to Western shores during this time period. Like, okay, so if it was shown off when we know it was shown off at Space World and Space World 2001, but we never heard about this. We never heard about this in the United States, in Europe, Australia, Mexico, South America, continental Europe. We never heard about this. This is baffling to me, and it's unbelievable. It would never happen today. It just goes to show that the early days of the internet were far less integrated than things are today.
Yeah,
I mean, today
there would at least be some American dude like in Japan who would be like, check this out,
Or Japanese fans showing it off on
Sure.
Twitter or social media.
Of course.
It's unthinkable that anything could fall through the cracks on the internet, but back in 2001, it was apparently possible because this version of Diddy Kong Pilot we didn't know about until this decade, and it just showed up on YouTube one day, and we were like stuff. I thought it was a hoax at first. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But this is legitimate. This is essentially this is from the bones of the Redneck Kong build, but it's got a whole new character roster. So returning from the previous iteration was Diddy, of course. It's Diddy Kong Pilot. Diddy's got to be there.
Of course.
Donkey Kong was back.
Heck yeah.
Dixie Kong was back.
I'm on board.
Cranky Kong was still there.
Absolutely.
K. Rool still there. Still rocking the
Indubitably.
pilot get up. Yeah. Funky was suddenly there. Funky was new.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, I guess maybe Funky replaced Candy and Redneck. I guess maybe they were like, well, this is a game with airplanes. We've got to get Funky Kong.
I don't see what's so weird about the cast. I mean, that's pretty normal. But what about the gameplay? Like, did the gameplay change or?
You got to stop doing this shtick, Nick, because we all know. I just called it the Mario build. We all know what's coming. You can hear it coming. It sounds like a fat Italian.
Now that's xenophobic.
Whatever. I married into like a family that's like a quarter
you were
Italian.
Gonna say
so.
I married a fat Italian. I was gonna be like, Hyle. Please.
He runs the local pizzeria. He really knows how to knead my dough.
That guy stole that guy's pizza.
I know how to. He knows how to get the white sauce out of me.
Oh, for crying! I'm done.
This from the guy who was talking about the exploit dungeon earlier.
Hey, that was forced upon me. That was trauma.
All right. Do you want to tell the nice folks at home the other characters in this build of the game? There are 12 characters in this build of the game. It's the most robust Diddy Kong Pilot ever got.
I'd be happy to.
Who are the other characters?
First, we have Rayman. Then, weirdly enough, Bob Ross. We have Ray Romano. That was an interesting choice.
Everybody loved him back then.
Yeah, we have Emo Phillips. Let's see. The black kid from the early PSP commercials. And we have that old PlayStation announcer guy in the suit. So that would have been a pretty cool lineup. No, it's fucking Mario characters. Mario, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Wario. That's awesome. I mean, Rare did apparently want to work with Wario at one point, as we know. But then there's Bowser too. And Toad's face looks like... What does he look like? He doesn't look like Toad. His mouth looks really weird.
Yeah, we'll get into... Well, let's talk about it. Yeah, so the art style for the character select screen, you instead of having all the characters lined up like you did in the previous build, you had...
It's more like Mario Kart 64 now.
Yeah, you had little profile pictures. Now, the art style, you said it looked like Saberwolf GBA, but it kind of... I think this was kind of like this compromise. It looks like vintage...
Mainly K. Rool looks like Saberwolf GBA. The rest don't really.
It looks like vintage Mario artwork to me, like before the standardized computer models of the Mario cast, the kind of artwork you'd see in the instruction manuals of like Super Mario Brothers or World game.
Or like a Philips CDI game.
Yeah.
I know what Toad looks like. There was like this old Canadian puppet show for kids. It was like Little Lilo or Lilo's Garden or something. Do you remember that thing?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
She or Ubi or somebody back me up in the YouTube comments eventually with this. Somebody Canadian. I'm not Canadian, but it'd be this little puppet and it'd go like, and it would just like make weird noise. I think it had a dog and it'd be like, and the puppet looked really weird. Anyway, that's exactly what Toad looks like.
Nick, that's just what you saw whenever you watch TV static. There's a whole creepypasta about it.
Nanalan, Cuburn says. Yeah, that's it. Nanalan. She'd be like... And then the dog would be like... And then she'd be like... Okay, sorry.
No, I was just going to let you keep going. This is far more entertaining than Diddy Kong Pilot.
So then the dog was all... And then she'd be like... Made by Canadians.
Yeah, so anyway... The art style, it almost looks like a proto King of Swing, at least with the Kongs, because it's the hand drawn style, you know, and
which is cool. I like it.
Yeah. Especially I think like Cranky looks. Nah, I mean Cranky. He's still a little bit more haggard than his like ice cream beard Payon redesign. But Diddy definitely kind of brings to mind the Payon King of Swing era. Now, to recap this absurdity, Nick, you know, I went on and on about how weird it was that Donkey Kong was a supporting character in a Diddy Kong game. Not weird, but just amazing. Mario is a supporting character, and not a Donkey Kong game, but a Diddy Kong game.
That's the way it should be. Italians are second-class citizens.
Oh, no.
Come on, anyone listening to this knows from second one everything is a joke. So
just the Irish. The Irish need not apply. Irish. I can say that because
are there any Irish video game players? I mean, video game characters? I mean, like iconic ones. Of course, there's. Are there any red-haired iconic video game characters?
Oh, there's Conker. He's red-haired and alcoholic, so it's pretty close.
Yeah, he's an Irish, and he gets in some fights.
He's an Irish. So anyway, Mario is a supporting character in a Diddy Kong game. Luigi, if you'll notice, is not there. They didn't include fucking Luigi.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, Toad's there, but Luigi's not.
I mean, I prefer Luigi
Wario's
over.
there.
I prefer Luigi over Mario, but I kind of love just the weird audacity of the character selection. Additionally, we lose Crunch. Crunch is gone, and of course, Redneck and Candy Kong are not there, but we got Funky in their place. Now, let's talk about the planes. The planes they're flying, and these are for the returning characters. These are the same planes seen in the previous build, but it's worth going over because every character had their own unique plane, which I loved. Now, Diddy Kong is in the kind of Diddy Kong Racing style airplane, like the blue little personal plane thing. Donkey Kong is in a wooden barrel plane, kind of almost looks like the barrel plane from Donkey Kong Country, but instead of a plane front, it's got a propeller. And
Funky's on the classic surfboard. That's awesome.
Funky is on the flying surfboard from Donkey Kong Country 2.
I wonder if they just reused the same asset.
They might. I mean, maybe. Dixie's in this weird, like...
stealth bomber.
Yeah. K. Rool, he's flying a... It looks like a zinger.
Flight
on the
of the
front.
Bumblebee.
Yeah. He's in a green
what
plane with what looks like a Bumblebee zinger ass for the propeller. And Cranky is
Mario's in a... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Cranky's kind of in a more...
Standard.
Yeah, he's kind of like an old... I think it's like an old... supposed to be like an older style plane, but... yeah, the Mario cast, those are some interesting choices.
The Mario one, I can't even... The blue of the cockpit window kind of looks like his pants, so it looks like he's just standing on like a Green Goblin glider or something. The Peach one is pretty standard as well. Toad is in a fucking UFO.
Yeah, I don't understand why Toad's in a flying saucer.
I want to believe, apparently, in Toad.
You have to love Wario being in a German...
yeah, he's the Red Baron.
Considering...
Now, that would have made more sense for K. Rool, technically. You should have switched him.
Well, but considering that, DK Vine has long suggested that Wario has some sort of German heritage, or
really, that's one fact I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a classic feature where the Wario brothers were Nazis, and
oh yes, of course.
Yoshi is in a Lakitu cloud, which
Lakitu's nowhere to be seen. Is this Grand Theft Auto or what's going on?
Yeah, well, it's weird. Yoshi and Bowser are not in what you would think they would be. Yoshi's in a Lakitu cloud, and Bowser is not in his clown car, but he's in some sort of...
the boss from the underwater world in DKC 3.
Yeah. He's in a spiked shell plane. And I don't think the clown car, which appeared in Super Mario World, but I don't think it was as ubiquitous as it is today. And you would think Yoshi would be in something that looked like the helicopter from off of Yoshi's Island, but he's not. He's in a Lakitu cloud. You would think like maybe, like, I don't know, they would stick Toad in a Lakitu cloud or...
Why is Toad in a UFO? That is so weird.
I
guess he kind of has the head shape of a gray.
Yeah, I think it might just be Rare didn't really know what to put the Mario cast in.
Yeah.
I don't know, but...
Well, Toad is into anal probing. We know that from the fan fiction sites.
No, that was just Mojo Nixon.
Oh yeah, great punk artist,
and he played Toad in a Super Mario Brothers movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there were numerous elements.
Toad's in a UFO. Thanks for listening, everybody.
There are numerous elements that came over from the E3 build, including a stories mode. And thanks to this footage on YouTube, we actually get to see one of the stories laid out for us. And it's called K. Rool's Gold. Now, Nick,
City
way back...
Slickers 3?
K. Rool shows off his short and curlies here. We did a dramatic reading of this way back when on the Vine Donkey Kong audio program. But that was several years ago. And I know a lot of our current audience had never heard that. So since it predates the Kongversation, we need to do one here. Now, I've already given my take on this in the past. So Nick, why don't you read the story of K. Rool's Gold verbatim from the game, and try to explain to the audience the level of insanity that is Diddy Kong Pilot.
All right. So yeah, this is pretty interesting, folks. Let's see. While skimming the treetops looking for any monkeys to mangle, mangle's capitalized for some reason, K. Rool discovered an ancient temple ruin. After setting his plane down in a nearby clearing, he headed for the entrance, and with makeshift torch in hand stepped inside. With just the flickering light from the torch, he moved silently along the dusty old corridors, checking for traps. At a dead end deep inside, he found a stone tablet. K. Rool picked it up and with one hand brushed away the thick layers of dust. He brought the torchlight in closer and saw a beautifully painted frieze. How do you pronounce that? Frieze?
Yeah, frieze.
The Kremlin king cast his eyes across the symbols. As he tried to make sense of them, an idea entered his head, and he said out loud, "It looks like a map to El Dorado." With the tablet as his guide, K. Rool set off to try and find the place he believed to be El Dorado, the mysterious city of gold. He followed the path of symbols and covered all four corners of the globe. He searched high and low through rain and snow. But no matter how hard he tried, it just seemed like he was never going to find it. Then out of the blue he spotted a tiny island far below. He thought he could just make out a huge gate on the far side. Was this it? Seeing a flat piece of ground near the gate, he pulled the plane into a steep dive and headed down to check it out. K. Rool was amazed at the door's beauty right up close, and his vivid imagination ran wild, wondering what riches lay beyond them. Several small footsteps to his right stole his attention for a moment. So, another adventurer has found their way to our door. There have been many before, you Mr. Lizard.
By the way, this is supposed to be dialogue at this point,
yeah, wow.
But they don't actually use quotation marks, so...
Who the fuck even are these characters?
Yeah, so these characters appear to be, like, dogs of some sort, maybe cats... But they're wearing like these weird. They have these weird hairstyles that may be like tribal headdresses.
This whole thing looks like a kind of like a Don Bluth cartoon or something. It's really weird.
Yeah. And by the way, it should be pointed out that this story is played out on screen,
in text
with stills that pop up. But then you've also got to the left.
Long.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. This is the racing game, by the way.
That's pretty awesome.
On the left, you've got a static illustration for K. Rool's Gold that shows K. Rool and a genie, who's one of these like doll characters.
What the heck?
Anyway, I'm sorry. So this is dialogue where he says, "So another adventurer has found their way to our door. There have been many before you, Mr. Lizard."
Even that silly Cranky Kong has tried to get past these doors, but left empty-handed.
I can't even tell what the characters are, so I don't know what voice to do.
Do you think you can do any better? Huh?
I do everything better than that old goat, so this should be no problem at all for me. After all, I am the king of the Kremlings. Anyway, the tricky bit was finding the place. Now I'm here, and it should be relatively simple.
If you say so.
Oh, if you say so, I am Nikiki,
the first guardian of the gate. Only we have the magical powers to open these doors. For us to do this, you must complete a series of tests. There are 4 in all, but no one has ever passed the first one.
Look, you might as well open the doors now and save us all a lot of time and effort.
Mo? What does that say?
No.
Oh, no? Okay, then tell me what I have to do so I can get it over with as soon as possible.
You should not take the task lightly. They have been selected to guard the 4 magical stones that can open the doors. The first task takes place in Crackpot Keep, so that is where you will begin your quest. The Firestone is locked under a grill in the center of the keep. Collect all 4 keys within the time limit to get your hands on it. However, you will need to avoid the mines that surround them. Some can be shot, and others can't. This isn't easy. Good luck.
What the fuck is that?
What the fuck?
So
well, at least they put a lot of work into this.
No, absolutely. If you thought the plot to Diddy Kong Racing was weird, alien space pig genie comes down to island that's known for his go-karts and takes it over, and a heroic elephant genie and a group of animals led by one of the stars of the Donkey Kong Country series has to liberate the island. That's a pretty weird plot for a racing game. This keep in mind, this wasn't the plot to Diddy Kong Pilot. This was just a plot of one of the many stories in the game. And
so each character had their own?
Well, we know that purportedly there were at least 2 other stories. One called Back to the Light and one called King of Kongs. I don't really have any other information on those, though.
Back and to the left? Is that like a JFK one or something?
Shows what really happened to Wrinkly Kong.
Yeah.
No, this is weird. I mean, this is K. Rool looking for the lost city of El Dorado, traveling the Earth looking for it. Like, it would have taken us far away from the Rare Archipelago. It would have introduced
so weird.
All sorts of elements. I mean...
Had the Road to El Dorado animated film just come out or something, and they were, like, still on a high from that? Or I don't know.
I don't know when that came out. Let me... March 31st, 2000. So, yeah, it might have inspired this partially.
Maybe.
Yeah. So... You've got all sorts of weird shit like Nikiki, like new characters, these tribal dog characters. Which, by the way, these don't even look like Rare designs. They look like, again, like you said, a Don Bluth movie or something. This is just bizarre, and there we don't know where the genie was going to come into play, but apparently there was a genie somewhere, and. Oh my God! Maybe this would have been tied into Taj. I don't really know. Maybe it would have been an origin story for Taj. That would have been pretty cool. But I'm baffled. This seems so unrare and so un-Donkey Kong that it's kind of surreal. We compared it way back when to a fever dream, and that's what this build feels like. This feels like a ludicrous nightmare that you wake up from in a cold sweat. And you're just like, what did I eat last night? Holy shit. The thing about this build of the game, Nick, is had this come out, we've been talking about, do we have to fear a merger of the Donkey Kong and the Mario series? This is something we're always scared of, and Super Mario Odyssey, has kind of restoked some of those fears. This would have done it. This would have done it by Rare's hand, even. This would have put Mario characters and Donkey Kong characters... Like, there wouldn't have been any divide anymore. Mario characters would have just been in the Donkey Kong series. Full stop. Nothing you can do about it. And, like, this whole notion of, they're cameo games and Donkey Kong games, that would have been out the window. So... I'm as intrigued as I am by the Mario build of this game. I am glad that Rare came to their senses, or maybe even Nintendo said, "Hey, we didn't give you permission to put Mario in this game. Get him and his friends the fuck out of there."
That has been Rare's credo. Always ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah, right. They did it with Conquer. I really wonder if Nintendo wasn't having this, and they were like, "Look, we still don't like this game, and we especially don't want Mario in it. Get him out." Especially with like Mario Kart Super Circuit coming out. I could see them just saying no, absolutely not. So they went back to the drawing board, and this is what's known in some circles as the 2003 build, but this would have been started, I imagine, in 2002 before the buyout. But the weird thing is, there are many indications that work continued on this even after the buyout. After all, Rare did continue to work on the Donkey Kong series through the Game Boy Advance
GBA games. Yeah.
Yes, the Game Boy Advance Remake trilogy and Diddy Kong Racing DS. So they were still working on Donkey Kong. The GBA, the handheld team, were working on Donkey Kong until mid-2007. So, and we know they wanted to do Donkey Kong Country 4 at some point. And so I think they thought they wouldn't have to revamp this Diddy Kong Pilot. They would have to get it to a state that Nintendo was happy with. But I think they thought, well, you know, we're the handheld team. Yes, we're now owned by Microsoft, but we can still make these games for Nintendo. We can still work with the Donkey Kong property. We know now there were apparently reports that Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers was revamped before the buyout. So, and who knows, maybe Nintendo wasn't happy with Coconut Crackers either. But so if Coconut Crackers was changed to It's Mr. Pants for no reason related to the Rare buyout, maybe it becoming Banjo-Pilot had nothing to do with the Microsoft purchase and just had everything to do with Nintendo continually rejecting it as a Donkey Kong or Diddy Kong game. So it's important to note that the 2003 build is the version that's readily available as a ROM on the internet. So you can play this. If you go seek it out, you can play it.
Is it a full game or is it just half finished?
It's mostly a full game, but it's got lots of bugs and glitches, and it's essentially Banjo-Pilot, but with Donkey Kong characters and Donkey Kong related stages. The music is identical, and that shouldn't be surprising considering how Kong flavored the music sounded in Banjo-Pilot. I mean, there's tracks that sound like they're Donkey Kong songs, and that's why. TT, like I said, the announcer is clearly TT, or it sounds just like it does in Diddy Kong Racing. And this is also the source of why Espresso is in Banjo-Pilot. Why Espresso makes a cameo in Banjo-Pilot, because in the track Plain Pursuit, which was reworked as Jinxie's Dunes, you can see DKC-style ostriches around the track. You've also got the same like graphics are used in many of the tracks. They did remove a lot of explicit Donkey Kong graphics and reworked some from Banjo as Banjo environments, but there are some environments that just carried over 100% as they appeared in this build of the game. So I find that interesting. And this is also voice acted, surprisingly enough. All of the characters have vocal clips, like when you pass them on a track, they shout out anguish, or when they pass you, or they
shout out Roadhog.
No, you've got Donkey Kong and all of his Grant Kirkhopian glory, cool, okay, stuff like that. You've got Diddy Kong in the high falsetto voice. You've got Funky Kong sounding like a stereotypical surfer dude. Yeah, it's voice acted, which I mean, the same voice clips again and again and again in the super compressed Game Boy style, but it's pretty cool, and it's pretty cool in the ROM, like hearing these characters straight from the Rare era. We're so used to hearing Donkey Kong Scooby-Doo voice that to hear like new Grant Kirkhopian stylings of his voice, it's neat. So
I like it.
The theme of the game, this game is themed around the idea of Kongs versus Kremlings. And the characters were arranged as sets. There were three sections of the game. There was Team Kong, Team Kremlin, and then also a Team Cranky mode, which I'll get to in a second. So in a sense, this was almost similar. It's a little bit more explicit than how Payon did it, but in Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, they arranged it. You got the Kongs, you got the Kremlings. You had a Kremlin counterpart for each Kong. And the whole game is themed around that. Cranky, you see Cranky in Cranky's cabin, or outside of Cranky's cabin, which appears just like it did in Donkey Kong Country, complete with the red Nintendo neon sign.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you've got to do right by Team Kong. We've got to beat these Kremlings. So each cup, I guess, would end with a dogfight in the clouds against the boss character. So if you were racing as a Kong, the boss character would always be a Kremling. If you were racing as a Kremling, the boss character would be a Kong. And
I remember a dog fighting minigame in one of the Sly Cooper games that was pretty fun. I could imagine seeing a boss being fun. I don't know.
Well, these are essentially the same boss fights as appeared in Banjo-Pilot. And
okay, so you would know.
Yeah, it was basically you were behind a character and you had to shoot them with bullets, and then the perspective would shift, and then the character would be behind you, and you'd have to avoid their bullets. It would just be back and forth like that.
Sounds like trying to play Star Fox Zero.
Like I said, the hardest difficulty was Team Cranky mode, and
which is all cranky.
Yeah, this is hilarious. So the way the character select screens is in Team Kong mode, you've got 4 Kongs. In Team Kremlin mode, you've got 4 Kremlins. In Team Cranky mode, you've still got the 4 character selects, but they're all cranky, like identical. It's just cranky. You only have one option that's Cranky Kong, and it's animated too. So it's like kind of like Brady Bunch squares. So like the characters are like looking around in their little square. With Cranky Kong, what he'll do is he'll pull out his dentures and hold them up to the camera, and they'll start chomping. So I think that's
story about a guy named Cranky.
I think that's the first instance of him pulling out his dentures. Because of course that became a thing in Tropical Freeze. He used them as weapons, but so
but it'd be funny if he pulled out a Claptrap and that's what he uses as dentures.
Yeah, because Donkey Kong 64 bizarrely did the Joker chattering teeth thing with Claptraps when you. So let's talk about the characters. Speaking of Claptraps, so Donkey, Diddy, and Dixie, and Cranky, like I said, are all playable. And they return with King K. Rool. But did I say Funky? Donkey, Diddy, Dixie, and Funky. They're Team Kong. Yes. Okay. So they're all back. As is King K. Rool, but he's no longer a pilot. He is just dressed as King K. Rool. They got rid of his pilot. I know! It sucks! And I don't know why this makes me so angry, considering this game never was even released. But it still makes me angry. Just like getting rid of Redneck Kong makes me angry. Like, it was perfect! Why are you messing with perfection? Rare from 14 years ago? Fuck!
Yeah, Rare. All the good guys have left.
They left before 2003 because they would have stuck with the Baron von Ghoul iteration of K. Rool. Maybe that is why they changed him though, because Grabbed by the Ghoulies was 2003. Maybe they didn't want to draw comparisons with Baron von Ghoul, and so they just changed K. Rool. That might be the reason now that I think about it, but it's still a shame because
K. Rool doesn't want to be affiliated with Gary Glitter and the like.
Right. Yeah, you know the whole pedophilia element probably Nintendo would frown upon. If they're frowning on everything else about this game, drawing comparisons to your new child molesting villain over on the Xbox might not be a great thing. So King K. Rool leads Team Kremlin.
Cool.
And Crunch is no longer in the game. He's been replaced with just a generic critter who is still dressed in the Donkey Kong 64 style, like leather jacket, but he's no longer Crunch. He's just critter. Which
Somewhere Carla is crying. That's
we've also got
really old callback.
We've also got
the Vine program. Sorry.
Yeah. We've also got Clump, just a clump.
Okay.
Now you would think Crusher would be the next one if we're just doing generic Kremlins. You would think Crusher would be the next one, but no, it was fucking
Chord. Sorry.
No, that's Clubba.
Oh, Crush.
No, Claptrap is the fourth Kremlin that's playable. Yeah.
Does he have hands?
He's essentially a little dog type character, but Claptrap is fully voiced in this game, by the way. So
wait, so this is the one that can be emulated?
Yeah.
I gotta play this and 100% it is Claptrap. That's amazing.
Yeah, he has a little scrappy little voice that he talks with, which I think that kind of contradicts the canon because I don't think Claptraps are supposed to be able to talk because Donkey Kong 64 portrayed them as unintelligent dog type animals.
Yeah, like Italians. Callback.
Oh. So, and yeah, like I said, Cranky Kong is also playable, but he's on his own team, Team Cranky.
Cranky. What if... Oh. Okay, I got an idea. You and Jeff with your DKU rules. You know how that one baboon in Tropical Freeze we always debated? Is it multiple baboons, Mandrills, whatever. You know the guy I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What if all these Crankies are different characters?
And he split using
his own technology.
Kong karate.
They're Kong clones.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying because the character you're referring to, Baboom in
yes,
in Tropical Freeze,
Baboom.
he was like a martial arts practitioner.
Maybe Cranky knew a few moves of his own and made 4 of them. From now on, I'm considering all these separate characters.
No,
it's going to be Crankier Kong, Crankier Old Kong 2, and Walter Matthau Kong.
If you actually look at it, it's just all of his stats are identical. I know you're trying to be cute and everything, and you're a regular Shirley Temple, but I think that just the idea is that Cranky is so vain, he probably thinks the song is about him, and also
probably.
He just wants to fill every character select screen with himself. And I mean, the humor is on point in this build. I gotta say, as weird as the Super Mario build felt, it felt so unrare. At the very least, as disappointed I am with them backing down from some of the more audacious choices, the humor is a lot more true to form to the Donkey Kong series under Rare here, especially Cranky Kong. I mean, it's on fire.
Yeah. Cranky's on fire. Better throw him in the water. Sorry.
The items that were added in this build were TNT barrels, buzzes. So yeah, the buzzes and zingers were in this game. So both iterations of Kremlin Crew B-type enemies. The buzzes came in blue, green, and pink. And they act as missiles, so they're replacing the other projectiles seen in the earlier builds. They're kind of like red shells, and from my experiences, they're vicious in this iteration. I'm sure they would have been toned down if the game actually saw release, but they just continually pound you in this game. It's very unbalanced. Zingers
Sounds
could
like
be
the
sent.
Exploit Dungeon. I like the sound of that.
Zingers could be sent behind you as kind of a reverse missile.
Oh, like a Mario Kart, like a shell.
Yeah, and weirdly,
Rambi
yeah,
in the sky.
So Rambi would be an item you could collect.
Oh, I get it. It's a James and the Giant Peach reference.
What?
Somebody out there's got to get that, and they're laughing so hard they fell out of their chair, pissed all over the floor. In James and the Giant Peach, there is a airborne rhino made of cloud particles that kills James's parents in the beginning of the story. It's very odd, but a rhino in the sky is in it. So,
okay, well, the only doll book I like is Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator.
Of course, yeah, that and the Big Fucking Giant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when that movie came out last summer, I went up to the ticket booth and I said, "Yes, I will have one for the Big Fucking Giant, please."
And what'd they say?
I was arrested immediately.
Oh, damn, they're really cracking down.
I know. Yeah, Rambi, this is like such a half-baked idea. Rambi would make you invincible. It makes
like
no
a Starman.
sense. Yeah. Or like the shield in Diddy Kong Racing, like the electro shield. It makes no sense. This kind of breaks the logic of the items, because how would you use if Rambi sat on the front of your plane maybe and could gore everything, that would be one thing. But no, you just start blinking and it's because of Rambi did that for you. What? The utilization of animals in Donkey Kong Barrel Blast by Payon made a lot more sense and was more true to the universe than whatever Rambi giving you invincibility means in this build of Diddy Kong Pilot. But like I said, you can try it out for yourself as a ROM. So we because it's a ROM, we do know all of the tracks in the game, and I'll just run through them real quick. There is Steamy Swoop. It was it's basically right outside Donkey Kong's treehouse from the original Donkey Kong Country.
I think Rambi took a steamy swoop.
I thought Steamy Swoop would bring in the woodpeckers from Donkey Kong Country 3, but
guess not.
Nope. Plane Pursuit. This is you would think this would be like the great the African plains savannah, but it's actually desert themed. This is the one that was reworked as Jinxie's Dunes in Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Pilot, which made more sense.
Should have been Gobi's Dunes.
There's Chili Length, which okay.
I guess that's referring to Sonic the Hedgehog's penis.
This also made its way into Banjo-Pilot.
Good lord, the next one.
There's a ship. There's like a steamship in the background. We thought it might be the Rusty Bucket in Banjo-Pilot, but that clearly was never the intention. Oh. And there's whales hopping out of the water. The next track was Magma Spurt.
I prefer Steamy Spurt.
This was this had a background that was unique to Diddy Kong Pilot. It had golden. It was like Kremlin temples, Kremlin ruins, and it had a giant golden K. Rool statue in the background. So that was
there
cool.
French prog rock music in the background too?
Yes.
Good.
I mean, I assume that's what French prog rock music sounds like. It sounds like music from Banjo-Pilot.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Shore Strife is the next track, and that's
takes place. Sleepy Shore.
Yeah, the Shore Strife takes place. I think this is what they reworked as Treasure Trove Cove in Banjo-Pilot, but in this version, you see Donkey Kong Island in the distance. And it looks just like it does it looks very similar to the way it does in Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Advance. So it still has the Kong head on the island. And actually, that's evidence right there that this was put in at the same time as Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Advance, because it looks straight from that game, with only maybe some minor differences. So yeah, they would have been doing this post buyout then. Weird. Then you've got Jungle Jostle, another jungle stage, Temple Heat, another lava stage, Wild Wilderness, and then Frosty.
Sort of redundant.
Yeah. Just to run through these real quick: Frosty Feud, Vine Rush, which will be our energy drink that we release on our merchandise store.
And Frosty Feud stars Steve Harvey.
And of course, Vine Rush, our energy drink. We'll distribute that with Tim Allen. We'll add his own special ingredient in there. Speedy Show. Speedy Show?
Why is that lava themed?
I don't. Reef Encounter. That's a pun. That's a pun.
It's like Reefer Madness.
No, you're misinterpreting that. Lava Dispute. It sounds like some of these are just placeholder names. Lava Dispute.
Yeah, seriously.
Frantic Beach, Prairie Dash, and Icy Passage. And then there were some battle stages: Jungle Jig, Sunset Scrap, lads, Ice Escapades, and Beach Brawl, which sounds like a wrestling pay-per-view.
They took a thing that was already a portmanteau and unportmanteaued it with Ice Escapades, because there's the Ice Capades.
Yes. It seems like as the level stages went on, they just got lazier and lazier.
Wow.
Anyway, should be pointing out that 100% completing the game, finishing Team Cranky mode, changes the title screen to Cranky Kong Pilot. And it's got a new logo, and the Cranky Kong Pilot logo has like cobwebs on it because it's old.
That's hilarious.
Because apparently Cranky Kong's got cobwebs.
Or squid or jizzed all over it.
Yeah, well, this is post Wrinkly's death, so however he wants to get his kicks. Good for him. So yeah, that is a version that can be played, and there are annoying glitches like there's a glitch with the sound where you'll fire a weapon and then the sound of the weapon being fired will just continue for the rest of the race. So it'll just be so a lot of like things that weren't ironed out before the game was scrapped, but it's interesting that it came out, and how close it is to Banjo-Pilot is kind of shocking. If you've played Banjo-Pilot, you've essentially played this game. Banjo-Pilot is just a reskinned Donkey Kong game. It's a reskinned Diddy Kong Pilot as seen in its final build. So, and of course, they did try something new with Banjo-Pilot when that switch was made. They tried the voxel version. When ultimately they couldn't get it to work, they just went back to their last build of Diddy Kong Pilot.
Now, not for me, who totally obviously knows, but for new listeners, like, what does voxel mean?
It was kind of the pseudo polygonal build of Banjo-Pilot. It was 3D graphics on the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course, I knew that.
It was ridiculously gorgeous. When it was announced, it like almost broke the DK Vine forum. People were just excited about it, and it was kind of like
Kim Kardashian pouring wine on her ass.
And you know what? That was done with voxel graphics as well.
Yeah, Magma Spurt.
Swooping through the canyons. So we do have one call to take, but before we take that, Nick, what are your final thoughts on Diddy Kong Pilot? Like we eventually got this game as a Banjo game, but Banjo-Pilot was never as interesting as most of the versions of Diddy Kong Pilot that were teased starting in 2001.
Like you said, with the Donkey Kong Land for Diddy Kong Racing, it just would have made more sense. Now, this is controversial, this being called the Kongversation, but I might be more partial to the Banjo world than the DK world. of characters. I don't know. I love them
That's
both
fine.
so much.
I mean,
But,
I love them both too.
So I'm kind of fine at the end of the day to have a new game with Banjo and company, but I haven't played it. It would have been probably useful for me to do that so I could compare and contrast. But from what I know from this aborted could-be classic, I don't know. It's going to live forever in our hearts because Redneck Kong, the Mario characters, Discovery, Magma Spurt, these things will echo through the annals of history.
Well, I'll say this. I do not mourn the 2003 build.
Yeah.
I
it was a little straightforward.
A little straightforward, but it made a lot of creative choices. Like I said, the humor was more on point, but I think a lot of the creative choices, like ditching K-Rool's pilot persona, getting rid of Crunch in favor of a generic critter who basically looks like Crunch, losing, eventually losing Redneck Kong, losing the stories mode. As crazy as the El Dorado thing was, I really want to see that play out. And there was less like lore building. There was less creativity on display. It was playing it safer, and that could have just been because Nintendo was being such a harsh critic of Diddy Kong Pilot, and they couldn't get it to work. And this was their final go at it, and they still didn't get past the muster, so they went the Banjo route. I don't know, but I think I have a great affinity for that 2001 E3 build with Redneck Kong, with Pilot K. Rool. It being more of a spiritual successor to Diddy Kong Racing than the watered-down Game Boy Advance kind of pointless game it became. And that sounds really harsh, but
I don't want to be harsh to echo more harshness, but I think it kind of... Diddy Kong Pilot is sort of the Steve Martin of games. Like, it used to be something great, but now it just kind of sticks to Banjo.
Oh, you fucker. All right. We have one call to take. Let's because that's how little people cared about Diddy Kong Pilot. Let's hear what they have to say.
Hey, this is Sabretooth from off of the forum. I was just wondering that, do you think it'd be possible to make like a... Okay, well, in the Rayman Pirate community, we set up like an online infrastructure for the game Rayman Arena, which normally isn't online. So we found a way to make it like playable online. You could play against friends, And I was thinking we could do the same thing, but for Banjo-Pilot, and we could make like yearly tournaments. So you could have like who's the best Banjo-Piloteer, and every year we just like race and find out who's the best. And it could be like a big we could even grow it and make it into like a big old competitive scene, kind of like League of Legends. Sometimes Mario Kart. It could be the big rival to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition. And we could call it Banjo-Pilot Online. And it'd be started by DK Line. And it'd be like our legacy. We could go to like Evo with it. And Apex. But even if we don't do that, we could just play with each other and have a great time. And if not Banjo-Pilot, maybe like Diddy Kong Racing or something. I don't know. Any of those games. But that's it.
Well, thank you for the call.
Yeah, that would be a big undertaking to program like an online infrastructure for a GBA game, but he mentioned Rayman, so I kind of have to support him.
No, that's a terrible idea. Banjo-Pilot sucks. It's not great. I hate to be so critical of Banjo-Pilot. Like, it's in the, as you would say, annals of rare games that I like bits of, but they just don't come together. It's about on par with Donkey Kong 64 as being a mess. And, Nintendo was right at the end of the day. Like, there was no point for Diddy Kong Pilot. Unless they were, able to eventually get it working in a voxel version, which they weren't with Banjo-Pilot. The only thing Diddy Kong Pilot had going for it was Redneck Kong. Like, seriously. Like, Redneck Kong, Pilot K. Rool, The Return of Crunch, Diddy starring in a game over Donkey Kong. That was the only thing it had going for it. Everything else was kind of pointless.
Yeah, I mean, I suck at most racing games, so people online usually use the old trope of, you just have to get good. You know, it's like a meme or whatever. But if Diddy Kong Pilot had come out with Redneck Kong, all you would have to do is get her done.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.